Hey folks, I'm sure most of you have already played around with Modeler a bit and have viewed some of the first steps video from Adobe. So in this video, we'll just probably revise a bit of the core concepts that you have been through in the past few days. So to begin, let's go through some of the basic desktop navigation controls. If you were to left click and hold out, you can orbit around the object like this. And likewise, if you were to hold out and middle mouse button, you can pan around the scene. So I feel like the controls are fairly standard. It's kind of a variation from like the different 3D programs that you will use, like Blender, Maya, or 3ds Max. If it doesn't work for some reason, you just like hold out Shift or Control in certain like permutations, and you should be able to get around the navigation. But yes, this is how it is. Let's just recap. Alt and left click to orbit. Alt and middle mouse button to pan. Okay, and you're just wondering now, like, all right, so now I can move around the scene. How do I like commit to the shape? So you can use the manipulator tool to just move it around first, just kind of space it and hold space to commit. And you're like, cool, so I have a sphere in the scene. But if you were to like hold down the space bar and left click it, you can actually expand the shape like this. Basically, drawing in 3D space is really cool, and you can adjust like the size of your brush essentially with this little dot button here. So now you have this shape, and once you deselect it, you're actually gonna be what we call scoped out of your object. So this scoping thing here that I just mentioned is like a new concept to Modeler, as you can see in the bottom part of the screen. Previously in Medium, we had that scene graph editor thing, so you can see like the way the layers are structured. But as useful as that may be, it kind of does slow you down if your scene gets a bit too big, and you need to like pan up and down like the scene graph just to find like a certain objects. So to kind of get away from that method of thinking, what the team has done is really just create this thing called the scope. So it may seem a bit complicated at the start, a bit alien, and you're gonna be a bit frustrated, like me in the first couple of weeks, but it's okay. So how it works is really just this. This is the base. When you are scoped out of the object itself, you're in the scene's kind of like world scope. But if you want to select your object, just point to it and hit S to scope in. So once you're scoped in, you can see like the select tool is now no longer available, but you're allowed to work on your object itself. This, like this. And if you hit Alt S to scope out, you'll hear the audio indicator, and yeah, you're back to like basically the world space, and you can create like a new layer, which is essentially also a new scope. Now you have two objects in the scene, and you're wondering, all right, so how does this scoping thing really work? Because I can still select it and stuff. Let's say if you want to use the warp tool, like a pretty big one. So without scoping in, once I do, let me just make it pretty big just to show the effect. Without scoping in, once I kind of just hit S on left click on the warp tool, not S, just left click and just like drag it around, I'll select, I'll actually move the geometry on both sides. Right, look at this. Okay, so let's undo all the changes. But like if I want to move the object on, let's say the right hand side only, I hit S to scope in, and it will only affect the clay on this part. So I hope you're understanding like kind of like the basics of this now with a more visual, I guess, explanation. Undo, scope out, scope into this one. See? So yeah, if you don't use the individual geometry scopes, you're just gonna affect everything in the scene. And depending on like the polygon in it may or may not like slow your machine down a lot. So yeah, this is kind of like the basics of the desktop navigation and a bit of the scoping concept. And we'll move on to kind of creating like the tabletop and the chairs in a while.